guys, welcome in. Hope everyone's doing good. I want to make a really helpful video because I know lots of you are beginners who might get down to an end of a game and have two rooks, or maybe you have a rook and a queen, or maybe you have just a queen, and you know that you should be able to checkmate, but you still sometimes, especially when the clock is ticking down and the time is getting low, you get stressed out and you don't figure it out. And it's kind of annoying. It makes you really mad. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 basic checkmates that even as a beginner, even as a pretty low ELO, you should feel comfortable with, because then if you get good at these things, then at the end of the game, if you don't have a lot of time on the clock, you'll feel good about how to checkmate them. So let's start off with the most easiest one. Here we have two rooks. And you might be thinking, this isn't the easiest one. Having queens would be easier. Actually, not so. With queens, sometimes you have to learn how not to make a stalemate on accident. But with rooks, it's pretty easy. So with a rook, what you want to do is cut the king off somewhere and then push the king back. I will show you exactly what that means. The first thing I would do here is move a rook to the edge. There's a lot of moves here. There's a little more better moves sometimes, a little more worse moves sometimes, but just move a rook to the edge. Let's say this king comes after your rook, which is what the king should do. The king should always be trying to take a rook, just in case you blunder. Well, you can just move this rook as far away from that king as you can, but you can see now we blocked off the king. This rook makes a force field. If the king was to step onto any of these squares, you could gobble them up. Oops, not like that. So it doesn't matter where the king is on this row. If the king moved to any of these squares, he would be captured. So the king is now stuck. Think of this as like a big force field. You, for no reason, ever in this endgame, should let the king pass by your rooks and escape to this side of the board. We want to keep them walled off over here. So this is good. Let's say the king moves for your rook. You're going to take this rook and not put it here, but here. Well, now the king is in check. The king can't go down because this rook is still blocking all these squares, and it can't stay there, so now it has to go up. Again, the best thing for the king to do is to chase the rook. The rook can deliver one more check here because now the king can't go down because this rook is taking care of it. If the king moves here, do not move here. You have to see the king has now made it to your rooks. The rooks are a lot faster than kings. Kings are kind of slow and fat. So you want to move your rook as far away as you can. I see a lot of beginners sometimes go, oh, I got to move my rook, and they put it here. And the next move you realize, oops, I messed up. I can't move my rooks over top of each other. That's cheating. So now I have to take an extra turn to move it over like this. That's fine if you make that mistake. Just don't stress it out. Just fix it. But when you're here, you want to stay side by side so they can continue to go up together. Well, now the king can start heading back this way. Boom. The king has to move to the back row. Again, you're never letting the king cross the line. And then, boom, it's checkmate. This also sometimes happens like this, and it's much easier. The king can't get to you in time to make any problems. You just literally march up the ladder. But I want to show you this one where sometimes you have to be a little more flexible to jump around some. You can't move here yet. You also can't move here yet. So you have to first get away from the king. The king will chase you. You check, chase, check, chase, check, chase. Don't check, because the king will take your rook. Run away. The rook is much faster than the king. Now if the king goes here to block this, run away again. The rook is a lot faster than the king. And then checkmate. Also, I want you to notice that you can do this in any direction. So if you are here, you can also cut the king off here. The king comes towards you. Check. King comes towards you. Oops. Slide over here. King comes towards you. Slide over here. King chases you. Slide down. Over. Down. Oops. You didn't see that. Down. Over. Down. Over. Run away. Over. Run away. Over. Down. Over. Checkmate. And it even works on the side of the board. You could have something like this, and you can check. The king has to run. King has to run. It doesn't matter. You can use your two rooks like this and get the king to any side of the board. This can be helpful to know if there are like pawns standing out here that you could run into trouble trying to check the king and getting captured by a pawn. You know, hey, I can always do the checkmate in this direction as well. I can always choose to go to this end of the board. Right here, I'm trying to show you. We can set it up. We can set it up. There we go. Now the ladder is established. So even if you have to move around a little bit, get the king to the side of the board where it's a little safer, or maybe it's a little easier for you to set the checkmate up if you have to avoid some pawns or other pieces or something. Now, slightly more complicated is if you have a rook and a queen. It could be the same thing, and it could be easier, but you have to pay a little more attention. So, for example, it's easy to get into this habit with a rook and a queen of just marching up the board because the queen defends the rook. It can go there, but you go there, there. Really not a lot the king can do about it. But like I said, you have to be a little more careful because if the rook and queen are in this order, all beginners have done this before, you go check, check, check. Oops. You forgot that the rook can't defend that way. So that's something you have to be a little careful of with the rook and the queen. You also, with the rook and the queen, have to be a little more careful with stalemate. In this position, if it was black or red to move, here, and you move here to finish the ladder, oops, king can't go there, can't go there because of your queen, can't go there or there or there. Yeah. You just made stalemate. Now, it's not that hard to avoid. You just need to, before you make your move, ask yourself, oh, is that stalemate? Oh, well, in that case, let me move my queen over there. Okay, they go here, and you can do the same trick. You just want to take a second with the queen and a rook to make sure there isn't some weird stalemate going on. Now, once again, when you have two queens, it can be easier. Like in this case, you check. It doesn't even matter what the king does. Check. Goes here, they defend each other, check, goes here, checkmate. Not a big deal. But once again, just like the queen and the rook, when you have two queens, you got to be really careful you don't do something dumb like here. Let's say the king moves here, and you go, okay, boom, ladder checkmate. And I have done this. I've even done this as a higher rated player because I had low time, and I just quickly pre-moved out the checkmate really fast, and then boom, stalemate. And you're sad. Or you laugh. You should really just laugh at yourself when that happens. It's a better thing than being sad. There's also tons of other checkmates you can do with two queens, but that's kind of beyond this video. I just want to show you an easy thing you can do if you have two queens for some reason at the end of the game. Now we're on to level 4, and it might seem like it gets a little tricky here, but pay attention and it will all make sense really soon, I promise. So, the queen and the king only trying to checkmate. Here's the thing, I like this checkmate. If I have two queens sometimes just for fun, I will try to give my opponent a queen just so I can checkmate like this because I think this checkmate is pretty fun. Once you learn it, it's a pretty enjoyable one to do. So I'm going to teach you what I think is a really fun way to do it and also a really practical way to do it. There are many, many, many ways to do this checkmate. I used to do it differently, and I probably, when I was a beginner, I wish someone would just show me this. They would always say, ooh, there's another way to do this. It's really hard, though, and I was kind of scared. But now I'm like, oh, they should have just showed me this way of doing it. So I'm going to show you guys the cool way to do it. The king can't move to any of these squares because our queen is guarding them, right? Wherever the king goes, here, here, here. We're going to do something called knight opposition, which sounds like a scary thing. But for a second, imagine this is a knight. It would check the king, right? And wherever the king goes, we want to keep checking it like it's a knight. So imagine this is a knight, and we're just going to keep checking the king like this, and checking the king, and checking the king, and checking the king. Now, you probably noticed this is not a knight, which is a good thing, because we couldn't checkmate if it was just a knight. But what we're going to do is wherever the king goes, let's say the king steps up, we're just going to keep ourselves that same distance from the king. The king goes up again, we do it again. The king is like, I'm getting suspicious. Goes down, we do it again. The king goes down again, we do it again. We're keeping ourselves in knight opposition. The king goes down again, we go down again. You notice what we're doing. We're really quickly forcing the king over to the edge. And this is the one I like doing in low time pressure because you can pretty quickly select your queen, wait to see where your opponent moves, and do it really quickly. And in fact, in this position, it's kind of fun. If this is actually the position, don't try this unless you want to accidentally stalemate a game. But the king only has one move, going up, right? And then going up. So if you actually get to this position, which happens quite a bit, because you'll try to make it go for as long as possible, and you have like 3 or 4 seconds left, you can actually pre-move all these moves to right here, because they will move, you will move, 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 they will move, and at this point you freeze. If you go here, just like earlier, you will put the king too much in a corner and you'll make a stalemate happen. So now the king can only wiggle back and forth on these 2 squares. And now your next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves, 6 if you want to have fun with it, are just going to be with your king. It doesn't matter. You go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And this is actually good enough. When they come down, you can checkmate here. If you want to for fun, you can do a little triangulation. Not that it matters, but this is a little prettier when they're all lined up on light squares together. So in this position, you can go here. Wherever the king moves, keep it in knight opposition, keep it in knight opposition, keep it in knight opposition, knight opposition, knight opposition. You're always hitting the king like you're a knight, even though you're not really checking the king. Right now, these moves are actually checked. And at this point, you can't take another step because of stalemate. So you just bring your king, bring your king, bring your king, checkmate. Now, I feel like some of you really want to probably see the other checkmate, so I will quickly show it to you. And this is what I did for a long time, too, when I was a beginner. But I don't like it as much anymore, but this checkmate's also pretty satisfying. You check the king like this, make sure your queen is defended by your king. The king only has 2 moves. Wherever they move, you are going to move the opposite direction. They go here, you're going to go here. If they go here, you're going to go here. The reason is now they're cut off here. This is a little easier sometimes for beginners because I think it looks like the normal ladder mate we did with the rooks earlier. It kind of has that feeling of, okay, you're not laying the king through. Wherever the king goes, the king is smart. They will stay on like close to the center as possible. You go here. Let's say they try to stay close to the center. Boom, check them again. They go here, you go the opposite. Well, now you walled them off in this position. They run, you go here, they run, you go here. If they run here, you can change plans. Actually, I will show you this because this gets a little confusing. Sometimes they go here and it confuses people how to get them out of the corner. But now you just change plans. Boom. Now you're cutting off this row. They go here, you go here, they go here, you go here, they go here, you go here. Now you have to be a little careful. If they go here, stalemate, right? But now you have them cut off. You have to be a little okay with switching plans in this one. This can be a little confusing, but see how I switched to checkmate this way, but then the king went back here, and now I'm back to checkmate here. But now I can just move back. They go here, here, they can avoid it. Wherever they move, it's going to be checkmate. So I would prefer that you guys do this. Also, it just feels way cooler to keep them in knight opposition the whole time. I think it's a way more satisfying checkmate. But if you want to do the other one, that one's fine too. Okay, now for level 5, but the most fun one. I really like this checkmate, and I try to make it as hard as possible for myself. I put the rook behind the king. This one is really, really important because you will have so many times in your life you have a position like this, and you will know, okay, I can't lose my rook. If I lose that rook, I can't checkmate. But if you know how to checkmate with just a rook and a king, just take it. Now you just checkmate him with a rook and a king, and it's no problem. If you don't know how to do this checkmate, then this position is pretty easy because you can just go here and win the knight. But there could be other position where it's not quite so easy, where like, how do I maybe try to win this piece? You can just take, and you know how to checkmate. So now time to learn. This one is super, super fun. So what we're going to do is make a box. Let's say the rook is here, okay? The rook sees all of these squares. The king, for no reason, can pass one of these lines. See how we have a very little box over here? A little bigger, bigger, and the biggest. The king cannot cross those lines. So, if you're able to make that box smaller, the king gets boxed in more. And if that box could be smaller, it boxed in more. Eventually, all the way to the edge of the board. Now, there is a problem, though. Obviously, your rook can't be there because the king can take it. So let's talk about how this checkmate works. First, you got to bring your rook on this side. This is going to be a huge box. Right now, this box is as big as it can get. Their king should really move towards you to make it as hard as possible. Now, every single move, you do not want to check. You will not give a single check this entire checkmating pattern until the checkmate at the end. Is that clear? Never give a check. Don't give a check until you're ready for checkmate. That's not always true. Like in the queen one, we saw we could give a check in the one pattern, the second one. But in this case, anytime you give a check, the king can escape to the other side. So don't give a check. You're going to make the box as small as possible. Now the box is only this big. When the king moves, every single time you're going to ask yourself, can you make the box smaller? We want our rook to make moves in this direction. We want to make this box smaller. The king should never be able to escape to the other side. So the king goes here. Ask yourself, can I make the box smaller here or here? Well, here doesn't work because the king can escape to this side. Here doesn't work because the king can take us. If the answer is no, I can't make the box smaller, move your king closer. They should go here. Can you make the box smaller? No, because again, if you give a check, they go to the other side of the box. You can't make the box smaller. Move your king. You got to bring your king anyway, right? So this is really efficient. So now their king has 1, 2, 3 moves. Anywhere they go, let's say they go here, you ask yourself, can I make the box smaller? And in fact, you can. Okay, they have to move. They can't move down or over. The box is now only this big. So king goes here. Can you make the box smaller? You can. Okay, the king goes here. Can you make the box smaller? No. Bring the king. Can you make the box smaller? No, because again, you don't want to check them and let them go. So bring the king. They move. Can you make the box smaller? Yes. They move. Can you make the box smaller? Yes. They move. Can you make the box smaller? No. No. Yes. They have to go there. Yes. And you'll see this kind of back and forth pattern. No, so you'll bring the king. You'll bring the king. And you'll get eventually to this position, okay? This is the key position. You get your rook lined up here. The rook does not let the king come out either of those squares. The king has 2 squares to wiggle back and forth on. And there are 2 ways you can reach this position, okay? Half the time you'll reach this position, and let's say you have all these moves, blah, 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 and you go boom, it's your turn to move, and you go checkmate. Your king blocks their escape, and your rook checkmates them, okay? But let's say it's their turn, and they go here. Don't freak out. This is all part of the plan. You can move your rook to any square. Any single square on this row. It's called wasting a move. You go here. Well, they still can't get out. They still can't get out. Now their king has to go here. And boom, checkmate. Now, let's say their king was a little smarter. Let's say you went here and here, and they thought, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not going to fall for your plan here. If I keep going up like this, I see your plan. So let's say lots of people after doing this for 1 or 2 moves, especially beginners, will say, wait a second. I see where this is heading. They're trying to get me trapped on the side of the board. I'm going to trick them. I'm going to run away this way. Can you make the box smaller? No, they'll take you. So now it's not complicated. Bring the king. Well, now look at this. They can't go here. Your king takes away those 3 squares, so they have to go one of these places. They should keep it as close as possible. Now you move the rook. They move here. This is kind of tricky. Don't fall for any tricks. You might think you messed up right here, but you didn't. You ask yourself the same question. Can you make the box smaller? Nope, they'll take you. What about here? Well, that's just a check. It doesn't really do you any good. So you bring the king, and this is where it gets confusing. When you bring the king, you might think you messed it up, but you didn't. Anywhere they move, you can either continue your pattern, or if you want to, you can bring the king all the way around, but it doesn't matter. Just bring the rook. Okay, he has to move. Can you make the box smaller? No. So he goes here. Can you make the box smaller? No. Bring the king. Can you make the box smaller? Yes. And let's say he does this again. He goes, oh, I see what you're doing. Now you're heading this way. I'm going to go there. Well, you can just bring the king or bring the king. This is probably a little more efficient around the backside, but it really doesn't matter. Anywhere he moves, bring the king. He moves, you bring the king. Again, let's say he gets smart. Goes backwards. If you want to keep it easy, just come around the backside. He moves. You go here. He moves. You go there. Doesn't matter. He goes here. You go here. Let's just for fun do it on this side of the board. You go boom. And you think, oh, I don't know what's happening here, right? Well, this is the same exact thing. We got him stuck in the corner. He only has 2 moves. You just have to ask yourself, how could this be checkmate? Well, this would be checkmate if these 2 squares were covered. You have all the time in the world. Their king can't go anywhere. So you go boom, move, boom, move, and now checkmate. And if his king was here, you would waste a move anywhere here. They move, checkmate. Now, before you go, Don't fall for the trap of saying, I watched a video where someone did these checkmates, so now I know how to checkmate. Go to a chess.com or lead chess and set up these positions and see if you can do checkmates. With 2 rooks, with a rook and a queen, with just a queen, with just a rook, with 2 queens. Actually practice these checkmates a few times because, let's be honest, if you play 3 or 10-minute games, these checkmates could be easy if you have 5 minutes on the clock, but could be really stressful for some people if you have 20 seconds. But you want to get good at them and practice them. So do that. Also, if you wouldn't mind, subscribe to the channel so I can bring you even more fun educational stuff just like this video. Thanks.